Sorry I'm so late.
Hey.
What's going on?
I mean, if you have to ask. Wow, I just saw your tweet.
What about it?
I mean, that's a pretty big statement to make. Can you just explain to me what you meant by that?
I don't know. I just think that like the main worry of Canadians and the Canadian government when we accept all these like transnationals, it's kind of like a question of where their loyalty will lie. Because like if you have two nations that you feel responsibility to, two different cultures, isn't one going to prevail over the other in case like relations aren't great? Like I think a big worry for Canada when we accept all these transnationals is if what happens if conflict breaks out between Canada and the other country. Right? Like, who will they ultimately side with? It's probably not Canada because they don't feel the same type of attachment to Canada like their host country where they might have with their home country. And I think that's like a really big worry because if you look at, say like World War II, if you look at Japanese Canadians in Canada, they were not treated very well throughout the war because the Canadian government didn't trust them. We were at war with Japan, and yet we had all these Japanese Canadians who didn't assimilate to Canada and very much maintain their own distinct culture. So the government kind of got like backed into a corner, I guess you could say, and they didn't really know what to do with like all these people who they really couldn't trust that well in the country. So they created these camps, and I think a big worry is that yes, we recognize these camps were not good for many of the people involved. They were bad. They have been condemned by the government. But also, I think you need to recognize why the government could have been scared in that instance, and we don't want that to happen again with all these transnationals that are being brought in.
Okay. So you're basically saying that most immigrants who are coming in are dangerous and shouldn't be trusted. See, I don't necessarily agree with that because I understand your concerns with Canadian life and just how their ways of living can be affected by that, but I also don't think that it should be automatically assumed that transnational migrants are a danger to the Canadian civic life. And also, I don't believe one nation would necessarily prevail over the other because migrants who come in from other countries, they obviously want the best for their host country, right? Because it's the place that they're living in. But again, there's always going to be that connection to their original country because, again, it's like the country that first hosted them, they were born there and all that. There's still going to be that connection, but I think it's still acceptable to have sentiments and, that respect and duty to protect the host country. And I guess that's an advantage of having a dualistic perspective, right? You get to see both sides of the argument.
I don't know, I just think that Canada needs to be more careful about who we're accepting because we have to make sure that if something happens between our countries, that Canada itself is in a safe place and that Canadians are in a safe place, because isn't that the whole purpose of the Canadian government? Like, to protect their Canadian citizens first. Shouldn't that be our goal as opposed to dealing with all these problems abroad? We need to protect Canadians.
Amen. I mean, having connections between two countries is fine, but sometimes it causes conflicts between an individual valuing their homeland over their host country. And as someone is sending their income, support, and resources back home to their friends and family from their host country, it's like, why not value the host country by trying to better the economy instead of investing time and effort in only the homeland?
I kind of understand like both sides. You guys kind of have like an us versus them kind of mentality, but I mean, like, I kind of understand where you're coming from. Like, in this kind of situation, we would probably implement like a screening process in order to ensure like, the safety of our country. That way we can ensure that like transnational citizens won't like turn on us again if like if like relations sour again. Like, we're not just letting anyone in.
And I can see that, but also like with who we do let in, it's a big strain on Canada and a lot of our social programs. Like, the more people we let in, the more overwhelmed programs like public health will be. Currently, it's already overwhelmed with like trying to meet the needs of Canadians, and if we add all these more people to it, who may or may not be providing the funding to the social program that is sufficient enough to keep it running, then I don't really think it's the best idea to bring them in, because we can't support and we can't sustain it, because we have to deal with the needs of Canadians first, is what I keep saying. Like, these transnationals are coming in, they're working, they're sending their incomes back home, it's not reinvesting in our economy. And on top of like their incomes being sent home, they're taking Canadian products and sending them home, right? They're going to our stores and taking products that are made for Canadian consumers and sending them abroad where they can't be used by Canadians who they have been made for.
Have you ever run out of food at your house? Really? Because that's what you're saying. As you're talking as if Canada is in a shortage of products, when Canada is the top 5 most prosperous countries in the world. So don't say that as lightly as it is, because other countries, they don't have those opportunities and those products, and that's why the people that is here, the transnationals, are sending them back home to help their families. And also their money they're sending, it doesn't also only mean they are sending the money of Canada. They are sending their incomes, they are lowering their standards of living here, so in order to sustain their families back home. It's a sacrifice they are doing. It's not just because they want to. And we're feeding the economy. We are paying full price for the products. We are paying taxes here. It's not just because we want to and we want to send everything back there. It's a responsibility some people have, because the families back home cannot do that.
Like, I understand, but also, is it the responsibility of Canadians and the Canadian government to be the one to fix that? Like, why can't the government of their countries fix it for them? Because, like, the way it is, our government, why does it feel the responsibility to help when we need to help ourselves? Why can't the government in the country do it for them?
Because, as you said, Canada can do that, but other countries can't. Their own government turns on them. The government doesn't help the people. And the countries don't even have the resources to take for them or hands. So that's why the people that come to Canada from other countries have the responsibility to do that, because they want to help their country and they want to help their families when their government doesn't do it.
I mean, there are people coming in that are doing jobs that Canadians don't want. If there are people that are willing to do that kind of work, then like, what's the problem? Like, we wouldn't have places to live if it weren't for people taking these jobs that we don't want.
Maybe that's because they're working the less paid jobs because they don't have the qualifications or don't speak the language of the country. Like, why not speak English in an English-speaking country?
How dare you say that when there's people with doctorates in factories working? Because yeah, there is a barrier of language, but also it's not the same to learn English as your second language as your first. And there's sometimes when people don't even bother to try to understand you when you are speaking in broken English.
I understand that, but language is tying you to the homeland. So why is it necessary to continue to support the homeland as there's an active role and present need that can collide with the homeland's culture, traditions, and beliefs? The cultural differences from both countries collides with each other. There needs to be a unity to one nation. We should be seen as one. You should be able to look at Canada and see the type of people we are.
Colliding cultures? Really? You're gonna say that when Canada's core value is the multiculturalism?
Guys, you need to take it down a notch.
I mean, that is what Canada is praised about all over the world. That inclusivity, that multiculturalism, like Carol said, right? I mean, in a sense, we are different, but again, we are a single unit.
I mean, you guys, like, you need to recognize that Canada is a multicultural society. I mean, look at all of us. We're all completely different, but, like, we seem to get along, like, pretty well. Like, I don't understand, like, what the problem is here.
I mean, like, it's kind of hard to say because I guess when you put it like that, it makes sense because it's on a smaller scale that we can understand easier. And like personally, like I've never looked at you guys as immigrants. To me, you've always just been like my friends who are here and who've always been here, but yeah, you have different perspectives. But I think as much as that is true, like we do still have a little bit of trouble coming to terms with like what that means for like, the change in what Canada really is.
I mean,
You know what? But it's okay, you know, and I'm kind of glad that we did have this discussion because as immigrants, sometimes we feel like our voices are not heard enough. And, you know, when you leave your home country, it's really hard. And yeah, the people in the new host country do welcome you, but in the sense you still feel like you're a guest and not a member of the family, right? So it's just nice to at least be heard for once, right?
I agree. I mean, here's to Canada, guys.
Yeah, here's to Canada.